From an urbanist perspective, what's the first thing you think of when it comes to the United States? Highways, wide roads, parking lots, mini malls, and suburbia on steroids, with mostly ugly modernist buildings amongst it all. Many think that outside of the urban cores of America's most iconic cities, New York, Miami, Vegas, San Francisco, etc., that there's really nowhere where you can walk around and just be a pedestrian. And even in places where you can, it's usually quite hostile, either due to high tourist traffic, crime, homelessness, ugly buildings and streets, and noise. But today, I'll present to you 3 cities and towns, in no particular order, that have pedestrian-friendly urbanism, beautiful buildings, as well as clean and safe streets that are definitely worth a visit and show off the best of what America has to offer, and has the potential to offer throughout the entire country if it was willing to. This episode is all about the Golden State, California, and is where I've lived my entire life, so you can really trust me with these picks. Alright, let's get it going. Carmel by the Sea, California. We're starting off strong on my personal favorite, as I was lucky enough to go to school not too far away in Santa Cruz and was able to visit Carmel by the Sea multiple times. Carmel by the Sea, home of former Mayor Clint Eastwood and Brad Pitt, is an affluent village on California's Central Coast. The Central Coast of California is ecologically one of the most beautiful regions in the world and has some of the best year-round weather there is, and Carmel is the hidden gem. Nestled in the small Carmel Valley with its very own Carmel Bay, with Monterey Bay to the north and Point Lobos and Big Sur to the south, with mountains surrounding, and far away from a major highway, Carmel by the Sea has the unique feel of being transported to this idealistic, isolated version of the California coastline that you simply didn't think was possible. On the ground level, the streets here are narrow, welcoming, clean, and built for pedestrians. The entire village is designed for walkability, as car traffic moves slowly, buildings and homes have no setback, blocks are small, and there's no ocean of parking to traverse to get from one place to another. Because of this, you don't encounter the usual quirks of the California coastline, such as the beach being lined with parking lots, graffiti on ugly urban walls, or speedsters threatening your life whenever you cross the street. Here, due to its healthy urbanism, there is a culture of community, kindness, and tranquility that provides a paradise-like experience. Here, you can truly relax and enjoy the beauty of this part of the world, which is just not possible in places like Santa Monica, Long Beach, or even Malibu. There are no chains or traffic lights, and even the amazing Carmel Beach is only a short walk away from the village center. And best of all is the actual architecture of the buildings. There's a diversity of classical styles that suit the region, its history, and it all works well together. Carmel was a hub for writers and artists in the late 19th century, an era where the humanities embraced classical building tradition, and it certainly feels that way. Unlike the mess that artistic hubs create nowadays, always trying to outdo each other on who can do the most wacky stunt, here in Carmel, there is certainly an underlying appreciation for the classics. The buildings here are authentic and create a uniquely Californian experience, while also taking root in long-time building traditions similar to the San Francisco Victorians. Although here, warmer and lighter colors are what take precedent, blending itself well to the surrounding nature and fits the sunnier weather of the Central Coast compared to up in the Bay. Most impressively, these are not mostly historical buildings, but rather newer buildings that had to fit the town's strict architectural code that ensures each new building stylistically is consistent to what has characterized the village for over a century. While this town is the home of the wealthy, Carmel thrives as a tourist destination, and with parking meters banned from the city, everybody can feel free to pay a visit, or in this case, not have to pay. Even if all you do is take a stroll through town, admire the beautiful homes, get a cup of coffee, and relax on the beach. While the city may have several strict regulations regarding its urban planning, the resulting effect is truly stunning, making for a peaceful and charming experience. As a content creator, cybersecurity and data protection has become extremely important to me. Since my YouTube channel has grown, I've gotten a massive influx of scam calls and attempted sign-ins into my account, and it's genuinely worrying. I know one of the reasons I was getting so many spam texts and calls is because big companies can't keep our data safe. As I talked about last time, recently, AT&T revealed that nearly all of their customers' call and text records had been exposed in a massive data breach. And it hasn't even been a few months since they admitted over 70 million of their users' social security numbers ended up on the dark web. The stolen logs also contain a record for every number AT&T customers called or texted, so even if you don't use AT&T, if someone who texted you did, then your number has been exposed. So what can you do to protect yourself? You can use Aura, like I do, the sponsor of today's video. Aura will alert me if they find my phone number or any other sensitive information that has been compromised. And they give me fast fraud alerts if anyone tries to use that data to access my credit or bank accounts. Aura does so much to keep me and my family safe too. I also get things like transaction monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, a password manager, parental controls, and identity theft insurance. I get all of this in one app at one affordable price. I can also get their AI-powered call assistant that will pick up unknown calls on my behalf to screen them for spam and scams. The AI forwards legitimate calls to me, so I don't miss appointments, deliveries, and emergencies. And it protects me from harmful text messages by filtering out known spam numbers and scanning links in the message for phishing threats. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches, and if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/alexanderotmans and try your first 2 weeks for free, all linked below in the description. Solvang, California. Remaining in California's Central Coast for now, a little over 3 hours drive south of Carmel by the Sea, is the peculiar but beautiful town of Solvang. Going on a bit of a tangent, but very much relevant to this, one of the longtime criticisms of new urbanism is that it's pastiche and feels more like Disneyland rather than something truly authentic. While I do have some sympathy for this argument, as that usually comes down to modern architects still figuring out how to build classically to the same standard as in the past, and falling just a bit short. At the same time, isn't a place being like Disneyland a good thing? Between the ridiculous amount of money people spend on it and its stupidly high demand, clearly having Disneyland-like qualities is more of a good thing than not. And I say all of this because Solvang is a bit of a Disneyland in terms of how it was built, except without the crowds, the cost, and the incessant marketing. In other words, it's like Disneyland without the Disney. To explain, the town was settled by Midwestern Danes in the early 20th century. After a few decades, a few of the townspeople built Danish-style homes and windmills, simply to pay homage to their roots. The Danish settlers eventually became a minority in the town by the 1930s, but word got around about the few Danish-style buildings, and so the town became a bit of a tourist destination and a popular stopover along the PCH. Ever since, the entire downtown has become entirely Danish in its architecture purely for the sake of being a tourist gimmick. While it does honor the town's heritage, remember that the town never actually looked like this until it already became popular with tourists and the original Danish residents were mostly long gone. But, in my opinion, this doesn't take anything away from the town in terms of its enjoyability at all. Solvang, as a result of this phenomenon, is a very beautiful, fun, and welcoming town. Its continued Danish-style development has only benefited the city and deepens its impact. It has great restaurants, cafes, and clean and highly walkable streets, with, you guessed it, Copenhagen Drive as the centerpiece, with Mission Santa Ines just across the street. It is a bit more car-centric here, but it's still very easy to get around, and the uniqueness, abundance, and the quaintness of the Danish aesthetic simply cannot be overlooked. Nevada City, California. Now in the often overlooked, but just as spectacular, northeastern part of the state, in the foothills of the Sierras, is the absolutely gorgeous town of Nevada City. Between the 3 towns on this list, this one is by far the least known, even amongst Californians, but it ought to be much more appreciated. Nevada City is a product of the famed California gold rush, and was one of the premier gold mining towns in the mid-19th century, and thankfully, it has remained largely untouched ever since, making this one of the few places in California that fully puts you in a time warp. Its old Western style buildings in conjunction with the classical Victorian aesthetic is exceptionally pretty, but combined with its hilly terrain, narrow streets, and enveloping forest, makes a uniquely Eastern Californian experience that is unknown to most, but is a must in understanding the rich history of the state. After all, it is called the Golden State for a reason. And this may be cheating a bit, but the nearby town of Grass Valley also has an incredible town center that is rooted in California's old Western/Victorian past, and has recently fully pedestrianized the beautiful Mill Street, which is pretty unprecedented for such a rural town. Point being, if you're going to traverse all the way up here, you might as well go to both of these amazing historical towns. Many people think that when it comes to California, the people live in LA, San Diego, and the Bay Area which are often sprawling, car-centric, high-traffic hellholes, and that the real beauty is found in the camping grounds of Yosemite, Joshua Tree, and the Redwoods. But what I hope this video showed you today is that there is a great in-between, with highly respectable, people-friendly, beautiful towns that even the most dedicated nature lovers can find solace in, let alone highbrow urbanists like myself. California is a massive state, and the US is an even larger country, and so despite whatever standard or status quo we assume there is for the American lifestyle, there are always hidden gems and exceptions that prove that great urbanism can be an intrinsically American thing too, even in the current age. Therefore, we should learn from these places, understand why they are so great, and not be afraid to apply those same principles right in our own backyards. Hope you enjoyed this video in this brand new series on my channel. Let me know which state I should cover next. Until next time, goodbye.